I work in tech, but technology does not define what I do. In my world, technology is not about gadgets, algorithms, and software, but about people, their creativity, and their ability to drive progress. In a perfect world, anyone, regardless of gender identity, should feel empowered to lead, innovate, and thrive in tech. Today, I'd like to explore how we can turn this ideal into reality. Interest in the tech industry has never been higher, yet the number of women pursuing education and careers in tech remains surprisingly low. Even more concerning is the stated fact that half of these women leave the industry before the age of 35, often citing a lack of inclusive and diverse work culture as a reason. So what can we as women do in the face of such challenges? There is a rather provocative Harvard Business Review article titled "To Hold Women Back, Keep Treating Them Like Men." This article is highlighting the importance of acknowledging differences in career path, communication styles, and attitude towards authority and power. In my view, it encourages a new perspective where we recognize and celebrate the unique qualities of individuals and stop conforming to a single mold. For that, we need to challenge the status quo and dare to be ourselves, whether it is wearing a flowery dress to a board meeting or speaking up against stereotypical expectations. The need to belong is in our human nature, and as such, we need to be intentional and bold in asserting our identity and our worth, especially in an environment where we are in a minority. At the same time, we need to debunk deeply rooted and harmful myths cemented by books like Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. Neuroscience tells us that there are more commonalities in our brains than there are differences. Yet societal norms often dictate unrealistic expectations, such as women being good multitaskers. In reality, multitasking isn't beneficial for anyone, regardless of gender. We also know that the brain has high plasticity, and though it's hard to change, it's not hardwired. In fact, it is able to be reprogrammed, which brings great hope for the future, as we need exponential change, a paradigm shift, where past behavior is not the reference to future outcomes. So if there's three things that have been instrumental for me throughout my career, it is 1, being on a quest to understand myself and others. 2, taking a proactive approach to life, always seeking to increase influence. And 3, practicing the power of positive no, taking a fair part of invisible work, but not more. On the first point, understanding self and others, I'd like to give credit to Daniel Hoffman. I'm a big fan of his core quality model and the way he proclaims that there are no difficult people, just differences. This model has helped me to identify my biggest assets, and it's provided me with a tool both in how I see myself and how I could guide my own development. I tend to be quite talkative, and I've always been, and it's definitely one of my core strengths. However, this puts me at risk of not listening carefully enough to those who are less outspoken or hold a different opinion. One of the most valuable feedback that I ever received came from a workshop facilitator who outlined that, given the group size and the time we had at the topic at hand, each participant had roughly 10 minutes of airtime. I took note, I used my time carefully, until we came to a point close to my heart, and I started to rant. Without any blame, the facilitator stated, "Thanks for sharing your view. That was your 10 minutes, which put a fair stop to my argumentation and provided me with the opportunity to quietly note down my further thoughts in writing." And by the end of the meeting, without repeating what anyone else had said, I could share those thoughts that no one had considered, bringing more value to the decision at hand. So this both illustrates the value of giving and receiving feedback and how understanding other people's thoughts and emotions facilitates for more effective dialogue. Over the years, I've worked on striking a balance between assertiveness and active listening, which has served me well. So what about you? What is your pitfall? I think it's good to realize that every core strength has its pitfall. We benefit from understanding it and work to develop the positive opposite, meaning knowing yourself, playing on your key strength, work on the correlated pitfall. It is a powerful tool to navigate your career and to own yourself. If we want to have a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable work environment, we need to be more diverse, inclusive, and equitable. It always starts from ourselves. We're the only ones we can control. We can control how we feel, how we respond, and how we act. When I, in my past life, heard comments like, "I never wanted to work for a she-boss," or when I didn't get the job interview because I was a woman, or when I earned 20% less than a male colleague doing the same job as me, I thought it was interesting, as it said more about the organization or the people in it than it did about me. The worst thing you can do is to become a victim of someone else's doing. It's not what happens to us that hurts us, but our response to it. For many reasons, no is hard, but behind every no, there is an underlying yes. And if we focus on what we say yes to, the no comes naturally. So if you have a tight deadline, do you say yes to arranging flowers for a sick colleague? I have arranged many flowers through my career, but never more than my fair share. Research tells us that there is a significant amount of invisible work which is disproportionately shouldered by women, both at home and at work. This is not uncommonly having a very negative impact on women's health. In fact, women are 41% more likely to suffer from stress-related illnesses as a consequence of unequal opportunities in the workplace. There is also research that tells us that men's health benefits from providing care as it builds stronger relationships. So if we say yes to a fair share of invisible work, making it valued, recognized, and shared, everyone benefits. So what's the underlying yes that makes you get away with a no? Maybe you did your share last week and it's someone else's turn. Maybe you have too much on your plate and need focus. Maybe you have a personal situation that makes you more vulnerable and as such should not take on any extra burden. If it is expected that these tasks should be performed by women, do we continue fueling these stereotypes? Or do we believe ourselves that the tasks should be shared? If so, then we can say no without hesitation in a way that brings understanding and acceptance, focusing on more valuable things and allow space for others to take on the shared responsibility. It is important to recognize that everyone's situation is unique, and what works for one person may not work for another. Our boundaries are personal and should not be compared. If you think about leaving the tech industry, don't give up. You are needed for so many reasons. Keep in mind that technology has changed the way we work, the way we communicate, and the way we live. It involves us on an individual level, but also on a societal, planetary level. Tech comes with great benefits, but also responsibilities, and there are few industries where you can make more impact. By embracing our differences, challenging outdated norms, and advocating for change, we can create a tech industry that is truly inclusive and empowering for all.